welcome to Gruen. We'll get to our panel in a moment, but first, here's some advice to brands. Stop giving me advice, like Nature Valley muesli bars.
Hey, Nature Valley doesn't make muesli bars so you can eat them on the sofa.
Hey, don't tell me where I can eat my muesli bars. I'll tell you where I eat my muesli bars. Nowhere, because I'm an adult and we don't have recess. They're not done either.
Nature Valley, get out more.
No, you get out more. Ad that I'm shouting at. OK, maybe I should get out more. Who else has advice for me? A car ad? Sure, why not?
Quiz, query, try, spy, take cover, go for a swim, go on a whim, go outside in.
Dumb, stupid, annoying, crap, ostrich, ladder. You're just saying words. And what does this mean?
Follow a compass, not a clock.
All right, let's meet at the pool at north. Then there's Sea Folly, who keeps saying the same thing over and over.
If you've got it, own it. And if you don't got it, own it anyway.
Own it. Just own it. That's definitely annoying, but I guess it's slightly more inspiring than rent it, lease it, afterpay it. OK, what am I supposed to own?
Own your style, own the pool. Even if you don't own it, own it.
Just own it. Own the pool. Then own your prison cell when you're arrested for breaking into the pool. What else should I own?
Own the beach.
If I own the beach, why do I need a pool? The beach is nature's pool. What else?
Own whatever, whenever.
Own whatever, whenever. Did you run out of ideas and just own it? Own it my ass.
Own that bit too.
OK, Sea Folly, you want to play it that way? I stole this from you, and now I own it. Time to welcome our panel, Todd Sampson, and from the Honeycomb Effect, Carolyn Miller. Joining them, Karen Ferry, and from PwC, Russell Howcroft. Welcome. The tourism industry is growing at a faster rate than the entire national economy. But most of the money isn't people coming in. It's Australians checking out our own backyard. And just like you never really know how you smell, you never really see how your state sells itself. So tonight, we're going to whip around the country faster than a Kontiki tour. There's a few standard moves in the state tourism playbook. There's always wine glasses and whimsical fonts. It's compulsory to have fairy lights, landscapes that look like screensavers, and someone meaningfully inspecting art. And you're simply not a tourism ad without a shit ton of bad hats. The states are having such an identity crisis, South Australia lopped off Tasmania, while Melbourne thinks it is Tasmania. So let's take a look at how Tassie sees itself.
Dawn breaks to the sound of stretching knicker elastic. Human squawks fill the air as icy waters kiss nether regions. These rogues don't have a care in the world. Nor do they have a towel.
Mate, have a lozenge. Icy waters, no towel, knicker elastic. Karen, how is this ad meant to make Tasmania sound enticing?
I just think it's brilliant, right? Like, the language they use is just so ugly, like knickers, squawks, rogues. But there's something that's so beautifully poetic about it because it's really Australian and it's how we sound as a culture. I mean, unfortunately, we've got to this point where we're all just latte-sipping, cell-phone-owning yuppies. So when you see an ad like this, that's just, you know, pretty down-to-earth and really ordinary in what they're doing, you know, like skinny dipping and just forgetting a towel. It's so refreshing to see that a part of Australia is still like that and that you can go there and experience that.
In the end, if you have an end line that's believable and if you have an end line which is action, so come down for air, so it's actually telling people what to do, which is always a good thing in advertising, and they're telling people what to do in a believable sense, you know, and the idea that I can just go down for air and I can go for a skinny dip and the camera's not too close.
I'm never going to get that.
Well, I guess we'll find out how much he loves advertising.
Like, advertising is generally the battle for real estate in your head, and positioning is really important in tourism. It's a really well-trodden path. They're trying to do it in a quiet way that makes it different from all the other pieces of advertising that are out there. And I know we made fun of The Voice, but I do think that this feels like art has slightly overcome idea a little bit because we had to subtitle it. And I think a lot of people will struggle to actually hear what's being said. And
They develop a really strong asset, like come down for air, and then move on. Yeah, they try and find something else the next year. I just don't know why they do that. Just that's awesome, lock that in. In 2050, it should still be the same line.
In 2050, it'll be, come down, it's the only place you can still live.
Breathe.
In fact, in 2050, it'll be, fuck off, we're full. There's a bunch of other ads in this series, all providing work for the same chain-smoking voiceover artist.
The scallop. Often reserved for fancy dinner parties. But down here, it's best served takeaway. In thick, short crust pastry that finds its way into every nook and cranny.
Oh, I bet it does, you pervert.
It's also a really practical way to deal with diversity. So it's really important in advertising now that you reflect diversity. That's what's expected by the consumer. But actually, who? So therefore, who do I put in my advertising becomes a real conundrum. So they've done a fantastic job at imply. So it's actually really clever just at a practical level as well, I think, you know, in that they're just dealing with the need to have diverse audience by not showing an audience.
And also saves money.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
You just do not want the takeout to be, if you are feeling depressed, here's a place for you.
Yeah, but what they're doing, though, is part of the assets that they're building now is that voice.
But the quiet is the thing I like about it. So normally in an ad break, it's shouting at you for 3 minutes or however long that ad break is. And they're trying to do a change of pace here.
But I think that it looks like what Tasmania looks like. Like, they're so much further away from the equator than the rest of Australia, but also, like, you look at all the photos taken down there, it's, like, such low light, and it's also the personality of the place. Like, it's, you know, it's really hilly, the landscape changes so much, and also it is kind of a bit dark and twisted. Like, Mona that's set up that, you know, all the convict stuff. It's like, it is a weird place. And we joke about it, we make a lot of, you know, but it's like...
Would you like to hide a body? Come down to destroy evidence. Victoria is the second most visited state in Australia after New South Wales, which is the #1 stat that pisses off Victorians. 13 years ago, Victoria had a campaign involving a big red ball of wool.
And I'll say the same thing, and it's a funny thing.
They didn't get together. She was looking for something with no strings attached.
Yeah.
I owned it. Here's how Victoria's latest campaign unravelled.
I think it's this way.
Je pense que c'est ça.
And it's definitely this way. It's that way.
I am loving this way.
I think this might be it.
This is amazing.
My review of that ad is, oh, no, wait, I think it's this way. Russell, Victoria used to be the best at these ads. What happened?
Well, and that core asset was beautifully expressed with the red wool. It's sort of a mental idea. Like, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, but it's a beautiful way to take people through a journey, and it connects the city. It gives you an asset, the red wool. You can use that asset in all other comms. It was really a beautifully designed piece of advertising. You've got to recognise that there is a battle for tourism money, and this is a battle for the best ads. We've got to get back to doing that. I mean, who wants to watch that?
I'm with you. It's a terrible ad because it all makes me go is like, I love Melbourne, but what if I ran into those knobs?
I'm sorry to go on, right? I know I did go on about that, but it's like...
You're going on again.
Oh, you get...
Just tipping you off before you go on. Making tourism advertising is incredibly... It's like being nibbled to death by ducks.
Next season on Body Hack. Release the ducks, release the ducks. The Melbourne ad has the boresome foursome. Other tourism ads are full of singles and couples. There's only one ad we saw showing families, and that's for the ACT. That's right, the ACT is for families, which is why so many politicians start a second family when they get there.
We are the biggest nation of cruisers per population in the world. So in like 2016, 1 in 20 Australians took a cruise. And I can see why. Like, if you're a family, it's really cheap. It's like $100 a day. It's all-inclusive. It's really easy. The kids love it. You send them off and then you can go and just do whatever you want because parents need a holiday as well. And driving 5 hours through regional Victoria, 2 screaming kids and the smell of vomited-up strawberry milk through the car is not a holiday. It's just your life.
Yes.
That came from a really real place.
Victorian Tourism actually did do a campaign specifically targeting dog owners to talk through dog-friendly accommodation. So I
liked it.
Yeah, me too. And I actually thought that was really clever because that's a family to a lot of people, and that actually really hits a nail on the head saying we're doing this differently.
Wow, they made an ad for dogs and a dog of an ad, so it works.
Don't feel sorry for old mate. It's his own damn fault he didn't visit Adelaide sooner.
I know, right? And to be fair to old mate, Adelaide used to be a lot more shit. That stadium roof climb only opened in 2016. If old mate went earlier, he'd have fallen off. I'm outraged that I don't feel remotely outraged by that act. Because Adelaide, yeah, you're right. Because it is an exciting, vibrant place now, but that association makes it feel like it is only for old people. Northern Territory Tourism provided funding to one of the year's highest-grossing local films, Top End Wedding. Since the film, tourism to the NT has increased by 12%. The most visited destination in the country is New South Wales. But there's no big glossy TV ad selling Sydney. Russell, is that peak Sydney? Assuming you're so great that you don't have to do much?
Well, it's not surprising that that's what Sydney does. You know, you see that Harbour Bridge, you see the zoo even, Bondi Beach, the harbour. I mean, it's just... as a result, Sydney itself doesn't have to work that hard.
Queensland ads are full of Instagrammable locations.
Hey Jeremy, is it true you can see the Great Barrier Reef from space?
Yeah, how amazing is that?
Queensland, where life's beautiful one day and perfect the next.
Ah, beautiful one day. Gone in about a decade. Queensland's current campaign stars music duo Busby Maru. Western Australia went for a celebrity ambassador too, who I'm sure is just as squeaky clean.
There's a crackle of excitement here in WA.
Western Australia has now seceded from that brand partnership. But WA has another small and hairy brand ambassador.
And in Perth, there's a group of them that you simply have to meet. The Quokkas on Rottnest Island.
Oh, the WA government helicoptered Roger Federer to Rottnest Island to share this selfie with his 33 million social media followers. That's Roger on the right. I'll never know how they managed to nab Roger. He's so famously brand shy. Carolyn, how valuable is it for a state to have something you can take a selfie with?
Oh, hugely. And in fact, word of mouth is still the greatest way to sell tourism ever. But then you look at things that are done internationally especially, and everyone wants their shot with the Opera House and the Harbour Bridge and those sorts of places.
And I think the fact that it is on social media is super important because almost 90% of the decision-making process for travel starts online in some form of search. And there's a cleverness to that selfie, right? So you see Roger Federer, they just want to be there with the little animal, but they're indirectly endorsing the location. And online, experienced guest referrals is the most important.
50 to 60% of Gen Zs base their holiday choice on what they see on social media and what they can share on social media. And
the thing that amazes me, though, is you can go and sit in business class to have an influencer photo taken. So you don't even need to go to a location or do anything else. You can actually fake your Instagram experience, which is amazing to me.
Yeah. That's the thing, it's like we'd be so easy to Photoshop a picture of you on Everest, but people still pay $100,000 with no training experience and go up there and potentially die because they want to have that photo in their newsfeed.
Todd gets offended when he hears about those people who fake Everest because he climbed it by himself carrying a Sherpa while being eaten by ducks. A very spooky Halloween version of The Pitch. This week, we've asked our agencies to decide if Halloween in Australia is a trick or a treat. We've asked one agency to abolish Halloween and the other to convince us all to embrace it. Please welcome from Head Jam, Sarah Cook, and from Synergy Group, Erin Collette. Welcome. Sarah, how did you end Halloween?
Well, we wanted to look at the American influence of Halloween and how that can be a very, very slippery slope.
Let's have a look.
Halloween. From the wonderful folks who brought to you sugar treats, fizzy drinks, supersize, mac eats, chubby cheeks, sex discriminating, colour segregating, drive-by shooting, black lynching, petrol guzzling, wall building, waterboarding, opioid addicting, climate damaging, mass shooting, atomic bombing, pussy grabbing. Wake up, Australia. The American dream is a nightmare. Boycott Halloween.
Erin, what's your pro-Halloween pitch?
We took the approach that Halloween isn't actually as foreign as you might think.
Let's have a look.
You know, Halloween's a lot like being Australian. There's lots that scares us, but there's just as much that brings us together. We're a nation of larrikins. A country of tricksters and treaters. There you go, mate. Heroes and outlaws. And there's a little of both in all of us. We're just a bunch of different folk who love getting together and celebrating the spirits. This year and every year, let's get behind a day we can all get in on. It's Hallows, and it's a bloody ripper.
Todd, which did you prefer?
There's truth in both of them, but I'm going for the first one.
Carolyn?
I absolutely loved both of them, and I do think that the second one, by shortening it, was hilarious. I thought that was great. But I'm going for the first one because it's the first thing anyone says when they don't like Halloween is bloody American, so, yeah.
Karen?
Both those ads are amazing, and you could run both of them, like, straight away, but I think I'm just going to pick number one because it got me in the feels.
And Russell, you're the tiebreaker if I'm no good at maths.
I just want to say that the production values in number two were just absolutely fantastic. Fantastic storytelling, single camera shot, lots of great casting, beautifully timed, so number two.
Well, I think that means there's a big Spring is a racing's Christmas, but on the 17th of October, the ABC, the Australian Buzzkill Corporation, ran a story that was like discovering Santa has been using elf slave labour.
The sport of kings. A billion-dollar industry.
Here's cheers to the racing industry.
A major investigation.
We're the next online for the animal liberationist. If you think we're not, you're kidding yourself.
Australian racing's dark side.
Horse racing is in crisis. Social media is full of people saying nup to the cup. A Melbourne cinema has cancelled screenings of Ride Like a Girl, and big celebs have dropped from the event like horses. It was a national scandal, but a weird thing happened. Not one single brand pulled out. A number of companies involved released statements, and, well, that's pretty much it. Only dating app Bumble announced it would donate $130,000 to a program rehoming retired racehorses. Carolyn, why are no brands pulling out? What would it take?
Look, and we're starting to see a groundswell. So, yes, the ABC investigation that aired was a massive, big deal this year. However, we're slowly seeing it year on year. There is more traction, particularly in social media, about the deaths that occur with horses, and now we can also see with the retired horses what happens to them. So there's still a lot of people who are very supportive of horse racing. There's still a lot of people, and let's face it, Melbourne Cup for a huge amount of people has got bugger all to do with horses. It's about drinking and having an afternoon off work and getting a frock on.
Last year's Melbourne Cup ad had just one horse, and this guy, who is not even watching the race, but a shopping trolley. Although, to be fair, if that trolley breaks a wheel, no one will shoot it. Here's this year's... People feel sorry for the shopping trolley in that chat? Here's this year's campaign. That's what it looked like in their heads. This was the reality.
It's really about the event, and the horse race is just something that happens as a mid-show entertainment between lady DJ and woman throwing up in a shoe. Like, the whole spring racing season's now repositioned as kind of like a nightclub during the day. They want you to go get your spray tan, get your Gazman suit, get your Omni, get dressed up and get a bogan Burning Man.
After the AFL and NRL, horse racing is the most attended sport in Australia. Spring racing is still getting loads of good spin, and even the articles about horse cruelty are covered in horse racing advertising. Todd, if you wanted to make the Melbourne Cup the race that the nation stops watching, how would you do it?
There would be two pillars for it. First would be the customer. So you would want to use shame, and you'd want it to become the new fur. You know, you'd want people like circus, animal circus is no longer popular around the world. You would use that sort of angle with customers. But probably the more powerful one, and I think a bit of this may happen, is you just follow the money.
I think that this is potentially the biggest corporate day that exists in the country per year. And I do think that something needs to fill the gap. Just imagine that the racing world did stop and there was no Melbourne Cup, something needs to fill that gap of what it is. And I do think it's an evolution. It's not something that could ever happen overnight. But certainly with the stretch towards veganism and certainly animal rights and all the rest of it, I think that there might actually be a divide between companies that will and companies that won't participate. So that there is still the social, all the good stuff without the animal cruelty, you still have that all together and your public holiday in Victoria.
Well, that's how you...
Because you already got two now, what, the AFL Grand Final as well? You people ever work?
We love the Melbourne Cup, right?
I mean, I remember growing up, Russell, and the Melbourne Cup was something that no one ever asked a question about. You know, it was universally beloved. It did not matter if you weren't interested in horse racing at any other time of the year. On Melbourne Cup Day, you got in a suite at school or at work. Everybody stopped, they watched the race. It did seem to be part of our DNA. It's been interesting for me to watch over the last 5 or 6 years that story change. Do you think there is a possibility that we will get to the stage where it becomes as unpopular as it is popular?
No. No, I genuinely don't. But I do think that the industry needs to do what it can to improve its standards. How we look after our animals, our primary produce, our farming. We're brilliant at it. We're amongst the best in the world. We do take safety standards very seriously. We do things ethically, we do things morally. In the main, that's how we go about business.
While many racing ads are hiding horses, one betting ad is busy removing people.
Where is everyone?
I think you'll find they're at the Tab Everest.
Sweet, then I'm going to the Opera House and the beach because there's no dickheads.